This is Drips News, your source for insightful analysis and breaking updates. Tonight, we delve into former President Trump's proposed chip tariffs, a Wall Street downturn fueled by inflation fears, and shakeups within the Pentagon leadership. We'll also examine the evolving China-Russia relationship, chaos among federal workers, and a surprising shift in U.S. foreign policy at the UN. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Former President Trump is proposing a substantial tariff increase on all imported semiconductor chips, potentially 25% or higher. This move is causing widespread concern due to the reliance of nearly every electronic device on these chips, which could lead to significant price increases for consumers. The U.S. heavily relies on chip imports, particularly from Taiwan. While the CHIPS and Science Act aims to boost domestic production, it will take time to catch up with demand, meaning this tariff could create immediate price pressures before the U.S. can adequately meet its own needs. The long-term effects are still unclear, but the potential disruption to supply chains and impact on consumer prices are significant. The stock market plunged today, with the Dow Jones dropping 748 points, reflecting growing fears of inflation and economic slowdown. This follows a sharp decline in consumer sentiment driven by concerns over President Trump's proposed tariffs and their potential impact on consumer prices. Economists are closely monitoring consumer spending, as weakened sentiment could further dampen economic growth. While a recession isn't imminent, indicators like slower job growth, declining retail sales, and a slowing housing market add to the unease. Even Walmart's warning about slower sales highlights the growing anxiety about the potential consequences of tariffs and rising prices on the U.S. economy. Now, we turn to shakeups at the Pentagon. Former President Trump is reportedly reshaping the Pentagon leadership, removing key figures like General Charles C.Q. Brown and Admiral Lisa Franchetti from their positions. The move, allegedly driven by a desire for greater control and loyalty, raises concerns about the politicization of the armed forces, as Trump aims to install leaders who prioritize loyalty over independent military counsel. The removal of Brown, who is black, and Franchetti, the first woman to lead the Navy, has amplified these concerns. This reflects Trump's long-held fascination with the military and suggests a continued desire to exert greater influence over the Pentagon. Now we turn to a story about international relations. Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin reaffirmed their strong relationship in a recent phone call, emphasizing their status as good neighbors and true friends. This comes as the United States, under President Trump, appears to be warming up to Moscow, particularly in efforts to resolve the conflict in Ukraine. Xi stated that China and Russia's strategies will not be influenced by any third party, directly addressing concerns about improved U.S.-Russia relations. China expressed support for dialogue between Russia and the U.S. and offered assistance in resolving the Ukrainian conflict, underscoring Beijing's commitment to its strategic partnership with Moscow amid evolving global dynamics. This signals a potential realignment of global powers. Next, we have a story about chaos and confusion. Federal workers faced chaos and confusion after Elon Musk demanded they detail their work from last week under threat of job loss. The initial email sparked widespread uncertainty, with conflicting guidance emerging from various government sources. President Trump initially supported the demand, but the Office of Personnel Management, OPM, later contradicted this, stating that responses are voluntary. Several agencies, including the Justice Department and the Pentagon, advised their staff not to comply. Other agencies instructed employees to respond, while the National Air Traffic Controllers Association condemned the demand as a distraction. Even employees at OPM were initially left in the dark. This situation highlights the complexity and potential disruption caused by the unexpected demand. Now we turn to the UN for a diplomatic surprise. In a surprising move at the United Nations, the United States voted alongside Russia against a UN General Assembly resolution condemning Russia's war against Ukraine, marking a significant departure from established U.S. policy. The U.S. and Russia later voted similarly on a U.S. proposed Security Council resolution that omitted calling Russia the aggressor or acknowledging Ukraine's territorial integrity. These unexpected alignments come amidst reports of the Trump administration engaging in discussions with Moscow and increased criticism of Ukrainian President Zelensky. This dramatic shift in U.S. diplomacy raises questions about transatlantic relations and the international response to the war in Ukraine. Let's go to France for more on this. French President Emmanuel Macron cautioned against a rushed or weak peace agreement in Ukraine, addressing President Trump's deal-making ambitions. Macron stressed the need for verifiable security guarantees, emphasizing that peace must not come at the cost of Ukraine's sovereignty and highlighting the importance of engaging with Vladimir Putin from a position of strength. President Trump focused on his deal-making prowess, indicating his belief in a possible resolution. While the leaders displayed amicable relations, their differing approaches remained evident. Macron reiterated that Europe must take on greater responsibility for its own security, a point of agreement with Trump. Shifting gears now, let's look at the future of computing. Microsoft has announced its first quantum computing chip, named Majorana 1, marking a significant milestone after nearly 2 decades of research. The chip utilizes 8 topological qubits made from indium arsenide and aluminum. While competitors like Google and IBM already have quantum processors, Microsoft is differentiating itself by manufacturing the chip's components. In the U.S., Microsoft plans to collaborate with national labs and universities to further research using Majorana 1, with commercial reliability targeted after reaching a few hundred qubits, from quantum computing to matters of economics. Federal Reserve officials are holding steady on interest rate cuts, according to minutes from their January meeting. Policymakers unanimously agreed to maintain the key policy rate, reflecting a desire to see further progress on inflation. Officials expressed concerns about the potential impact of tariffs, particularly those proposed by President Trump, on keeping inflation above the Fed's 2% target. The Fed will continue to monitor economic data closely before considering any further rate adjustments, adopting a wait-and-see approach. Now, let's turn to the man who may influence this policy in the future. Former President Donald Trump is acknowledging the resurgence of inflation, blaming the Biden administration's excessive spending. Recent reports confirm an unexpected rise in consumer prices, with January marking the largest monthly increase since August 2023. While Trump attributes blame to Biden, some economists point to substantial government spending under Biden's administration as That concludes our broadcast for this evening, but the news never sleeps. Be sure to follow us online for up-to-the-minute developments on these stories and more. From all of us here at Drips News, have a safe and informed night.